Welcome to the Sermon Podcast for First St. Charles United Methodist Church in downtown St. Charles, Missouri. We are so glad that you're here, and it's our prayer that you feel safe, welcome, and wanted in this space. If you're interested in finding out more about us or supporting our ministries, you can connect with us online at firststcharlesumc.org.
Today's scripture comes from the books of Judges and Romans. Judges chapter 4, verses 4 through 10. Deborah was a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth. She was judge over Israel at that time. She held court under Deborah's palm between Ramah and Bethel in the hills of Ephraim. The people of Israel went to her in matters of justice. She sent for Barak, son of Abinoam from Kedesh in Naphtali, and said to him, "It has come clear that God, the God of Israel, commands you. Go to Mount Tabor and prepare for battle. Take 10 companies of soldiers from Naphtali and Zebulun. I'll take care of getting Sisera, the leader of Jabin's army, in the Kishon River with all his chariots and troops, and I'll make sure you win the battle." Barak said, "If you go with me, I'll go, but if you don't go with me, I won't go." She said, "Of course I'll go with you, but understand that with an attitude like that, there will be no glory in it. For you, God will use a woman's hand to take care of Sisera." Deborah got ready and went to Barak and Kedesh. Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali together at Kedesh. 10 companies of men followed him, and Deborah was with him. So here's what I want, Romans chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. So here's what I want you to do. God helping you, take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changing from inside out. Readily recognize what He wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out of you, develops well-formed maturity in you. God bless our hearing and our understanding. May we find our voices in the hearing of God.
So has anyone ever said to you, use your voice? Maybe you didn't want to speak up when you were rather inclined not to do so. Or it would mean putting yourself first and you'd rather not. Or maybe to speak up and take a risk to be brave enough to speak up for someone else or yourself and you'd rather not. Well, I have heard those words. And perhaps some of you, if not all of you, may have heard them too. And if you haven't, I bet in some point in your life, you all will hear them too. So today is the second sermon in a series for January called Finding ... And today we're going to be talking about finding our voices. So in the text from Judges, we'll look at Deborah and Barak and how they found, or maybe failed to find, their voices. So in the text, we find Deborah, a prophet and a judge, and Barak, a military leader, during another time of oppression for the Israelites. This time, it had been 20 years of oppression for them. So Deborah summons Barak and tells him that God has commanded him to move the army and prepare for battle against the Canaanites. Deborah shares God's plan, not hers, with Barak. But Barak says he won't go unless Deborah goes with him. So Deborah agrees to go with him with the caveat that the victory won't be his, but instead it's going to be a woman's victory. So they both go. So in that text, who used their voice and who failed to do so? Deborah used her voice as she heard God's command and shared it with Barak. But Barak apparently lacked the courage, or maybe the faith in God, to go by himself, so he asked Deborah to go with him. In essence, Barak couldn't find his voice, and so he relied on Deborah's voice to use hers via traveling with him. You know, sometimes we use our voices through our actions too. Have you heard the phrase, your actions speak louder than words? Inaction can also speak loudly. So Barak's doubtful inclination to inaction and Deborah's confident action. Deborah's voice, by listening and by following God and by going with Barak, changed the future of the Israelites. Can using our voices change everything for us, for those we love, those around us, our church, community, and the world? Absolutely. So, some of my dear friends and my daughters are the ones who frequently tell me to use my voice. Usually, it's because I don't want to ask someone else to do something for me. I can be stubborn, and I can have trouble asking for help. Does that sound familiar to any of you? Sound like you? Well, I could easily argue that I'm the only one harmed by not using my voice under those circumstances, and generally, that's going to be true. But what about those times when I'm not using my voice and it impacts others? When I see someone in need and I do nothing? When I know someone is being misjudged and I remain silent? When members of minorities are being treated unfairly and I remain quiet? When I know better and I do nothing or I say nothing? Are you with me? Do you struggle using your voice sometimes too? And yes, my friends, we can use our voices for bad, to harm, rather than help. And it seems to me that our world is a divisive one. It's where people freely use their voices to put others down, to make fun of people, and to tout themselves as if their way is the only way. But my friends, this is not God's way. God is calling each one of us to use our voices for good in ways that build others up and that further God's kingdom on earth. Even by living out our church's welcome statement to extend God's grace and love to all people. So this is where our text from Romans comes in, and it reminds us in no uncertain terms why this is so important, why you and I must do this, and how we can do it. In the very first verse, Paul reminds the Romans that God is their strength and their help. And then next, Paul tells them to give their all to God, their whole being, their everyday selves, to live for God. And then comes a zinger. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. What it's telling us is don't get comfortable. Don't live with blinders on. Don't avoid conflict. Don't always follow the crowd. And don't let our hearts become numb or become complacent. In other words, use our voices. But it's not so easy for those of us who don't like conflict, is it? Or who don't want to be noticed, huh? Yet Paul then shares with us what will happen if we focus on God and God's worldview. You'll be changed from the inside out, the text says, and God will bring the best out of you, developing a well-formed maturity in you. Now, it can't get any better than that, can it? To be more Christ-like in our hearts and in our actions and in our voices. So let's pause for a moment and consider those areas in which we might need to use our voices. Is someone around you being bullied? Are you an ally or a family member of LGBTQ persons? Who do you know who is a member of a minority group? Are there people in your life who are disabled, mentally, physically, intellectually, or some other form? Do you know someone in an abusive relationship? Is there someone in your life who is depressed and believes no one cares for them? So using my voice is a quandary that God's been working on with me and continues to press on me. Now, as many of you know, I'm quite the fan of all things Disney, and here's the connection for today's message. In the live-action remake of Aladdin, there is a song entitled Speechless, which is added. And in the original movie, Princess Jasmine only sings a duet with Aladdin. But in the remake, they have given Jasmine the solo Speechless, which she sings twice in the movie. In the remake, with these words, are worth contemplating because they're equipping and empowering lyrics. And here's a few of them. Stay in your place, but better seen and not heard. Well, now that story is ending because I cannot start to crumble. So come on and try to shut me and cut me down. I won't be silenced. You can't keep me quiet, won't tremble when you try it. All I know is I won't go speechless. Let the storm in, I cannot be broken. No, I won't live unspoken. Don't you underestimate me, because I know that I won't go speechless. All I know is I won't go speechless. God is always calling us to not be speechless when we can do good by using our voices. Now, the song Speechless introduces a plot twist in the second movie at the end. In the original, the Sultan, Princess Jasmine's father, is the one that changes the law, which allows Jasmine to marry someone other than a prince. Jasmine doesn't have a leadership role, and I wouldn't really call her at that point a heroine. But in the remake, and she's found her voice, her dad, the Sultan, is so impressed with her that he, in turn, makes her the Sultan, and then she, and there's never been a female Sultan before, and then she can change the law herself so that she can marry someone other than a prince, like Aladdin. All because she refused to be speechless, and she used her voice for the good of her country. So who says Disney can't offer value to our lives? So friends, and I'm preaching just as much to myself as I am to you this morning, when we care about someone, including ourselves, and we are unwilling to use our voices, especially to advocate for others, what we really need to do is ask ourselves a question. How much do we really care about them? So as I conclude, I want to compare and contrast our two scriptures. In Judges, Barak set conditions for both Deborah and God before he would do anything. But in Romans, there are to be no conditions. In Judges, Deborah expects God to go before them and to do the hard work. In Romans, we are told and assured that God goes with us and will help us to do the hard work. Both scriptures offer us guidance for using our voices with God's help. And I can't think of a better partner than God to move through with me or with you in our everyday lives. And together, if we will follow the wisdom of Deborah, the guidance of Paul to the Romans, and perhaps even the courage of a fictional Disney princess, we can use our voices to change the world. As Jasmine and Aladdin declare, there's a whole new world, a wondrous place for you and me. And my friends, God's just waiting for us to be a part of bringing that world to fruition. And I am confident that with God's help, no matter how uncomfortable, timid, or scared, whatever we are feeling, we can use our voices to further God's kingdom here on earth. Amen.